Illegal animals. Anybody know what I'm talking about here? Roosters. Exactly. Chickens, bees, got to get permits for this stuff. Hooved animals. Illegal in the city. Now, let's think about this for a second, because we're talking about, I think there's a lot of progressive people out there in the world talking about creating a strong local food system, a strong local food economy. And really, I'm surrounded by meat eaters all the time. We all like to eat meat. And yet, almost all the meat eaters I know, and I am one, are separate from the meat they eat in that they've never killed it, they've never cleaned it. And we're all separate on a daily basis from that. And I think that in order to take a sentient animal's life on a regular basis, we need to at least be connected in some way to that taking of the life, so that we kind of understand that process. And then there's the idea of milk and living with the animals, milk and eggs and all this good stuff. We can be producing this stuff in our own backyards. Every city in America has a long history of people raising animals in the backyard. And then right now, the city of Minneapolis Animal Control Department will come by and fine you up to $2,000 for keeping a goat, a pig, a rooster, a cow, or a horse. $300 for bees. The licensing requirements for bees require that you take a class from a university. I just think some of this stuff it's over the line. They're trying to make rules and laws about things that apply to our basic survivability. And if we're really thinking about changing the local food system and changing into an economy that's self-sufficient, that's able to live in a good way with its own environment, I think we need to start talking about getting rid of these feedlots and getting a lot more small family farmers, and even growing some of this stuff ourselves in our own backyard. So I encourage everybody out there to raise chickens, and everybody out there that likes honey to start growing some bees or keeping beehives. But I don't encourage people to go to the city and ask permission.
If you have chickens and you're interested in learning how to kill them, Callister Farms has offered classes.
Really?
They're awesome.
That's excellent. Yeah, we say that again?
Callister Farms.
Lori Callister.
Yeah. They have offered, I think, 2 or 3 chicken killing classes now. You go to their farm and they walk you through their process. And it was great. It was very educational.
One of my friends was mentioning it to me the other day, the backyard farming that we used to do, all the chickens in everybody's yards, maybe that's what controlled bed bugs before. Whereas now we've got this huge bed bug epidemic. They stopped using DDT on the bed bugs. That was where we were using a lot of that DDT. And now they're out of control. Chickens eat bugs all day long. Now, last one, illegal plants. Who here knows any illegal plants?
Marijuana.
Marijuana, you don't say. Marijuana. Okay, now I'd like to skip over entirely the argument or the idea of whether marijuana is medicine or not. 14 states have legalized it, saying that it's medicine. Willie Nelson says it's medicine. I believe him. Okay, so what I'd like to point out, though, is that our urban farmers are struggling to pay rent. They're having to go to nonprofits and governments to try and get money just to pay rent. Anybody know how much a tomato sells for per pound? $1.29, $1.25. Potatoes, 70 to 90 cents a pound. Marijuana, $1,000 to $4,000 a pound. That's rent. 4 plants, you paid rent the whole year. So if we allow a different atmosphere to develop, let's say we did this. What if we told our legislators that we want rules that say that marijuana growers have to grow food if they're going to be growing in the city or the suburbs? Well, there you go. You've started producing food in the city on parking lots, and it's affordable. So I practice breaking this rule all the time. I love that illegal plant for its many uses and for many reasons, but one of the most important right now, I think, is in its capacity to help us build the food system. Other illegal plants, poppy, coca.
Didn't they just legislate salvia?
Salvia divinorum. I used to grow that out in front of the co-op. Divine salvia is a plant that's hallucinogenic. I think the problem that occurs with a lot of these hallucinogenic plants is that, and I don't think this is necessarily a reason to legislate, but that kids get a hold of them, not young kids, but teenagers and young adults get a hold of them and use them as party substances that they were nature never intended that to be, so that's kind of breaking one of those natural rules. And really, if they start legislating plants because of their hallucinogenic or poisonous effects on us, we're going to lose a lot of our stock at the nursery stores. So datura and morning glories, the castor beans, all kinds of fun, beautiful plants that dangerous, very dangerous. But I think, if we approach the natural world with respect, that's maybe a rule we shouldn't be breaking, is respecting the place that made us and everything else that it made. Okay, let's turn the page. I mentioned one of my heroes a minute ago, Willie Nelson. That guy travels around the nation undaunted by constant search and seizure. And he'll tell you right now, he'll tell anybody why he thinks marijuana should be legal, but then he's going to be out there working hard for those family farmers all the time. So this is one guy that also, like another hero I'm going to mention, Robin Hood. He likes to rob from the rich and give to the poor. And I think of that every time I'm composting and I'm getting compost waste from the co-op and I'm bringing it over to Little Earth. I guess Robin Hood and the whole myth around Robin Hood is one of my favorites. I like swords, I like bows and arrows, I like tough guys, but I like tough guys with good hearts. And so I think that's a classic example of a rule breaker who's breaking the rules for all the right reasons. Will Allen. Milwaukee.
Who's Will Allen?
Will Allen is, he used to be a basketball star, and now he's a farmer. He owns an urban farm called Growing Power, and it has outlets in Detroit, Milwaukee, and Chicago. He and his daughter Erica are amazing entrepreneur farmers, and they're very community-minded folks. So their operations are really cool, bio-intensive farms. They've got operations like you can imagine a big greenhouse with a fish tank down the middle growing tilapia, herbs growing over the top of that, filtering the water that goes through, and then the water goes back up and feeds the plants the fish waste.
They're urban gardeners.
They're
urban gardeners. They're all within the central Milwaukee.
all in the city. When I was talking with that man, he told me he uses compost 3 feet deep. 3 feet deep. You don't mess around. His method is to lay down wood chips as a barrier. And I really like this because it points out to us that wood chips are not productive growing medium. Don't put them on top of your garden. If you're going to have a garden on a parking lot, put them underneath, 3 feet deep. Put 3 feet of compost on top of them. You've given yourself more fertility than you've seen in any garden till then. I don't use wood chips on gardens. I've talked about this at every one of my classes that I've ever taught because it's one of the most common mistakes I see people investing their time and energy in. Wood chips are a source of carbon. Nature provides compost as fertility. Compost is made up of carbon and nitrogen in balance. Carbon on its own needs nitrogen to break down and will pull it from the soil. So the number one reason we don't use it is because it competes with our plants for nitrogen. Number two, since it competes and it is not fertile, plants can't spread out into it. Therefore, there's always patches wherever the wood mulch sits. Those patches are hit by sun and the water bakes out of the ground. Whereas if it was shaded with a ground cover or with some other plant, well, then you're keeping moisture in the soil. Other heroes that break the rules?
There's a Japanese guy, Masanobu Fukuoka. He was like a genetic researcher in Japan in the 70s, and he got like super disillusioned with the whole thing. He wrote this incredible book. It's called One Straw Revolution. I think everyone should read it.
It's called what?
One Straw Revolution.
One Straw?
Revolution.
And talks about farming, but he talks about what farming like represents for people's souls, I guess, and what permaculture means. It's like a philosophy, not just towards gardening, but like what I got from it mostly was that natural farming is a allegory for how to live a life.
Michael Pollan.
Michael Pollan. Nobody said Gandhi yet. I'm gonna say it. Gandhi.
I think of Gandhi a lot when I'm thinking about food security questions, because a lot of that, what you talk about, is about not about food, but a lot of those rules are really about control. And you know, that is, our government has used famine very often as a sort of population control device. You know, and in wars that's very often the case. But I think Gandhi saw through. It's funny because, like, you know, he'd write letters to the editor and organize political parties and all this stuff, you know. But what he said, you know, is, you know, what's basic is stuff that we can be providing ourselves. We can weave our own cloth. We don't have to buy British cloth.
Absolutely.
We can go to the ocean and get our own damn salt. We don't have to go do the British monopoly. And it's very similar to the local self-reliance that we have when we do our own gardening.
Yep. What's going on this list? What do we notice about all these people? What's some common themes of these heroes?
There's more people. They break the rules.
They break the rules.
A lot of jail time in there too. Well, yeah, really, look.
There is. Because there's consequences for breaking rules. They all kick ass. They're all brave.
Yeah.
They're all free. And if they can be that way, if all these people can live so brave and free, so can we. There's nothing stopping us. Those rules certainly aren't stopping our heroes. They don't need to stop us anymore. Well, any other questions for me tonight? Thank you all so very much for coming to the class. A lot of what I talked about, I'm on my 43rd newsletter, so a lot of what I've talked about is in various newsletters online, and it's all listed by topic on the homepage at givingtreegardens.com. So I got the edible weeds, we got how to compost, we got how to worm bin, and then the newest one, breaking the rules, where you can see me with my sword.